再来一次。
Let's move it.
Hi everyone! So happy to see all of you here today. My name is Winston Liu. I'm your host for tonight. Welcome to Parenting with Clarity. I just love it that we use parenting with clarity, these three little words, but having such a big concept, right? Like a noun or like a place, because I think that's exactly what we're doing today. Because I always feel like at times like this, we need to gather, we need to get together and support each other and then learn from each other even to get through the difficult times that we're facing right now because of the post-pandemic world, right? So I just feel let's get tonight, use tonight as a chance first to just get to know each other. And today we had the chance to really interact with each other through so many different platforms. As you know that we are streaming Parenting with Clarity across 9 channels today. So if you're watching this show today through YouTube, you would also find us also on Facebook Live. And where can you find us? You can find us on our official YouTube channel called Parenting with Clarity. And you can also find us on Sri KDU School's Facebook page, Real School, Real Kids, and also Cambridge English for Life Facebook page. And also on our sponsors and partners pages like Kitty 123. We also have Parenthood Magazine Malaysia. We also have MISBSG Group and also Paramount Property. So, just get yourself, a warm tea and come together and get ready for your heart to listen from our speaker tonight on Parenting with Clarity. We'll be joined by Dr. Goh Chi Leong, the Group CEO of Excel Education, the Group CEO of Real School, Real Kids, Cambridge English for Life, and also Sri KDU International Schools today. So one thing interesting that we will do today is also that you get a chance to download a worksheet. So what is that worksheet for? We call it a reflection sheet. What is it? It is going to be a very comprehensive workbook that you can use while listening to this talk. Because later, as we listen to Dr. Goh's talk, we'll be able to use this book and you'll be able to just drop down some notes and also put in your action plans so that this whole experience can be a transformative workshop even. So if you wanted to download this worksheet, all you need to do is just to click this here, okay? Just go to this QR code and scan this QR code. You'll find yourself a microsite, and the first link that you can find there, it's gonna be reflection sheet. So get into that link and you would find yourself a form, fill in some details, and you can download the sheet into your phones or your computer. And later, when the talk begins, you can start putting some notes into it. You'll find that worksheet is a PDF sheet. It is an editable PDF. So it's easy for you to just interact with the webinar throughout the night, okay? So guys, what are we going to do today? The topic that we have prepared for you is parenting with clarity. Now, why do we choose this topic? I think there's a reason for us to do that. When we're preparing for this topic, we're just thinking, what do all the parents need right now? If you ask someone right now, how are you? How do you feel right now? I feel this is going to be a very complicated question right now, isn't it? Because I get asked this question a lot. And when I got asked this question, I almost need to answer in different layers. Because if you ask me as a person, I would feel like this is a very unique point of my life where a lot of things are new. You're trying new things, you're learning new things, and facing new challenges all the time. But it's also a very good time for you to like really restart, right? Reinvent yourself. So it's good. But then if you ask ask this question and you answer it as a global citizen, it's much more complicated than that. Looking at how the world is going, how business is doing and how the world is doing in this post-pandemic world, it's scary sometimes. I think it is so easy for us to feel anxiety, isn't it, in times like this? And I feel like, as parents as well, we care so much about our kids, and as educators, your students, you need to also, sometimes even feel like what is good for them right now, right? I think a lot of people are facing a lot of challenges at home, firefighting. You're going through one struggle to another struggle. It's not easy to face this alone. So we find, so we think that we need to really help all the parents and all the educators out there to really face this. And how do we do this? What do they need? So I feel like, when we're feeling confused, when we're feeling lost, I think resilience is what we need, right? But how do we give resilience? I think resilience starts from clarity. Because I feel like without clarity, there's no awakening. Without awakening, there's no revival, isn't it? So if there's something new that's going to come out of this webinar tonight, I believe that is not only you learning something new, it's going to be so much more than that. It's going to be, I think maybe tomorrow is going to be a new beginning for you because of what you have learned today, yeah? So stay tuned. Our talk will begin shortly, on time, at 8:30. But right now, I just want you guys to bring this question to your mind before we start this talk. Think about this thing. In whatever that you're going through right now, I'm sure that you are going through your own phase of discovery, and also there might be some hardship. There might be also some excitement, some new things that come into your life right now. But whatever it is, when you think about the word parenting, what comes to your mind? All right? So, we are monitoring all the comments across all the channels tonight. So no matter where you're watching this, make sure that you comment in the live chat and interact with us, okay? This is live, so we can talk to each other. So the question that I just asked was, what comes to your mind when you think about the word parenting? Is it, is it a homework? Is it a challenge? Is it a gift? Is it a responsibility? I don't know what it is, What is that one word that comes to your mind when you think about parenting? Okay? So make sure you participate fully in this webinar, and make sure you download the worksheet. Can we pull out the QR code for them for a bit? Yes, QR code. You can scan this QR code and download the worksheet right now. And later, I think we're gonna pin it on your in the top comment as well. You can also download this through the site. So download this and explore a little bit on all the websites that we have linked onto that page as well. And most importantly, think about this question that I just asked. When you think about parenting, what comes to your mind? I'll see you later. So have you downloaded the worksheet yet? So our talk will begin shortly, I think in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So, I think just brace yourself with all the important learnings that's going to come our way late tonight. We'll be joined by Dr. Goh Chi Leong. He's the Group CEO of Excel Education, which is also the Group CEO of all the 4 brands under our group: Real Kids, Real Schools, Street KDU, and also Cambridge English for Life. And he'll be, sharing with us his amazing findings about how parents can find clarity in these difficult times. And I love, the word that he always used called VUCA, which he will later share with you what is it about. And I feel like this is exactly what we need right now. Just now we've talked a little bit about anxiety that we will feel in this time. I think it's so true, right? Things are constantly changing. I think because things are so new every single day and the challenges are different every single day as well, almost the way that used to, brought us here couldn't take us to where we wanted to be tomorrow. So, sometimes we're crying for help and say that, give me some solutions. Is there like a formula for me to understand how to get through this? And I feel like with parenting, it's even more important, Like with parenting, you would think about so much. I think a lot of parents that I deal with, they think about their kids more than they think about themselves. I think you would agree with this one, right? So I feel like if you're one of them and you are facing some challenges and you're firefighting at home in these difficult times, a lot of things are uncertain. So it's totally understandable. It is so easy to be trapped. And we hope that through this webinar, you'll be able to get, the opportunity to find your breakthrough. So remember, tonight, download the worksheet through this QR code. Can we flash out the QR code again? Yes. So you'll be able to just download the worksheet here. Once you click this worksheet, now this link, you will go into a page and you'll find all the links from our schools. And you can click the first link that says Reflection Worksheet. And then you can just put in your details and download this. All right? So I can't wait to just welcome all of you to this webinar. And I think we have 1 minute left, so I'm so excited. Are you guys ready for the talk? So now, let's just go into a little bit of video for you to get ready for this meeting. And then after, I think just 1 minute, we'll start the event. All right? See you guys soon. Hi everyone, welcome to Parenting with Clarity webinar. My name is Winston Liu, I'm your host for tonight. We're so excited to have all of you here with us tonight as we all venture into this important topic of the season, parenting with clarity. How do we find our way to clarity in parenting? So just now when we asked this question, what does parenting mean to you and what comes to your mind when you think about the word parenting? We saw some answers from the parents that is watching with us right now. And one of the most memorable answer is there's a parent that says, parenting is a shared responsibility. So I just feel like I think parenting becomes a lot more interesting this season because it is a mixture of many different factors that would make parenting effective, isn't it? So tonight we'll be joined by Dr. Goh Chi Leong, and he's our Group CEO of Excel Education. It's also the Group CEO of 4 brands under the Education Group: Sri KDU International Schools, Cambridge English for Life, Real Kids, and Real Schools. And let me introduce Dr. Goh a little bit to all of you. Dr. Goh is a PhD in cognitive psychology, and he's also the former president of the Malaysian Psychological Association. He's also the former president for the ASEAN Regional Union of Psychological Societies. And over the years, he has been a columnist for Parenthood Magazine Malaysia and the Star newspaper. And over 20 years, he has impacted more than 50,000 parents through the workshops that he conducted. And he's also a consultant psychologist for Mensa Malaysia, and he has been the project leader for 8 UNICEF projects in Malaysia. I'm so excited to invite Dr. Goh to our stage today, as he will share with us the 8 questions that parents should ask to navigate our way to clarity in parenting. Let us welcome Dr. Goh.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Winston, for that introduction, and a warm welcome to all parents who are joining us this evening. I know it's not easy to set aside time to attend a webinar like this, so I really appreciate the effort on your part to be disciplined enough to create the space and time to come together as a parenting community to exchange ideas on how we can parent with clarity. So my name is Dr. Goh Chi Leong, and I do a lot of sessions and talks and have a lot of meetings every day. And I must say that over the last 2 weeks, out of the hundreds of meetings and talks I have to give, this is the one talk I've been looking forward to the most. And I think the reason is because there's something special about parents coming together. Maybe it's because I'm a parent myself, but also I miss I guess physically being together with parents. I know we are connected virtually, but it's something special. And I think powerful when the parent community comes and connects together and takes time to encourage and share ideas with one another. So it's a real pleasure for me to be here. And I hope that by the end of tonight, this will be beneficial for you. I hope there will be some take-home messages that you can take away from tonight that will help you become more effective as a parent. I begin with what Winston mentioned earlier on, which is the idea that I think we realize this last 2 years has been particularly challenging as parents. It's been not an ordinary couple of years. We all acknowledge the fact that there's a special challenge being in the pandemic era. Most of us have been locked down. We've been working from home. Our children have been with us at home over the last 1.5 years. And we say that the pandemic, in a sense, is a good illustration of the VUCA world. Now, VUCA was actually a terminology that was used in military training many years ago. They used it to train military leaders to bring to mind a context that is ever-changing, very volatile, very uncertain. And so VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I think we all agree that the last 2 years has certainly been a VUCA context for us. I mean, nobody could have predicted in 2019 that we would be in the middle of a pandemic over the next 2 years, something that affects the whole world, something that changes the way we work, the way our children learn. All of our lifestyles, in a sense, have been impacted by this pandemic. But even before the pandemic, actually, we used to talk about VUCA in other contexts. So, for example, when we talked about the fourth industrial revolution and how that's changing the world in immeasurable ways, we also use the term VUCA. And so we say that we live in a VUCA world. The pandemic is just one example of this VUCA nature of the world. But this is not going to be the last time that we're going to be surprised by the complexity and the uncertainty in the world. And so I think as parents who are trying to parent our children, but in the context of a VUCA world, it makes it more challenging because as we try to prepare them for the future, we don't quite understand or we're not able to predict what the future is going to look like. And every time there's a new twist and turn, it sort of throws us off a little bit, right? I think the other element that perhaps challenges us as parents is the fact that in this VUCA world, in this internet world, we are also surrounded and bombarded regularly by a whole myriad of information. So we call it an information overload, especially with the internet. And I'm sure there's not a day that goes by that you get a message, from your WhatsApp, chat room or Facebook or Instagram. There's another new idea for us as parents. And so whether it's friends or relatives sending us stuff, this is the latest idea, this is the latest research on parenting, this is a new program that you've got to enroll your children for, so new books, new research, every day we're sort of bombarded with this whole variety of ideas about how to parent better, to the extent that I think, firstly, we get confused, in terms of who we listen to, but also it's overwhelming because there's so many things to keep track of. And to the point where sometimes we feel guilty as parents. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel guilty as parent where we're thinking maybe we're being left behind. Maybe we're not keeping up to step with the latest ideas and trends. And every day, every week, there's always another idea. And so we are torn in so many different directions, and it's very difficult to focus as parents, right? Because so many things on our plate. So on top, of our other responsibilities, our careers, our other relationships, our other leadership responsibilities, having to then navigate in this sea of information about how to be a parent can be confusing, and can lead to, I think, this sense of being overwhelmed and, it's almost paralysis by analysis, isn't it? We're not quite sure what to do next because there's just so much information that we're exposed to. So I think that's the thinking behind today's talk. We talked about parenting with clarity. How do we move away from this sort of storm of information? So much advice, so much, so many messages out there. How do we move to a place where we are able to find clarity about what should I be focusing on as a parent? And so I'm hoping that, at the end of tonight's session, through the sharing, we are able to find that core, we say, right? Cutting to the core. So that away from the many, many different distractions and all of the noises, how am I able to, in a sense, find clarity and focus? What is really important for me to look at as a parent? So that I'm no longer overwhelmed, I'm no longer feeling guilty, that I'm, maybe neglecting my job as a parent, but I'm able to focus on what my priorities should be, right? So to do that, the need is for us to take time away to reflect. Now, reflection is something that I talk a lot about, not just to parents, but when I do workshops and sessions for leadership, for CEOs, for business leaders, even for our own students at university, at schools, we talk about the importance of reflection. This is something that we teach our children in our schools from quite a young age, because we say, without reflection, without time to think, time by ourselves, to create the space to just think, sometimes we can get lost in today's world, right? Because number one, we're just so busy. So many things. You're firefighting, we're moving from one thing to the next, one day to the next. And if we're not careful, if we don't have the discipline to sort of be still, be quiet, be still, to create that space to just think, after a while, we're sort of lost, isn't it? We are going on the rat race. We are just moving along without really understanding where we should be going and where we are. So coming back to this concept of reflection, taking time to think, this is really important as parents. Since university, it's something that I've been practicing. I find it really, really useful as a leader, as a parent, as a husband, as a citizen of the country. Really important every 3 months or so to take maybe half a day off or 1 day off if you need more time, just to be alone, to be still, to be calm, away from your handphones, away from your emails, away from work, away from other people in your life, just to be alone so that you've got time and space to think. And that's really so important. Like I say, it's something that is invaluable to me. Without that reflection time, I don't think I'll be still sane, in terms of juggling all of my different responsibilities and roles. So I would suggest it's really important to take time as a parent to reflect on a regular basis. In fact, this is something you can do together. So both husband and wife can sort of take turns to look after the children, create space for each other to have the reflection. And at the end of the day, to then have time together to discuss what you've reflected on, so that there's sort of a joint collective reflection. But what I want to do today is therefore, for your next reflection time, which if you haven't had for a long time, I would say take this weekend. Take half a day this weekend and set aside that time to think. What I'm going to do for the rest of tonight is take you through 8 questions that help you do this reflection as a parent, right? So in order to find that clarity, in order to cut to the core of what is really important, so that you're not chasing, after your tail and focusing on too many things as a parent to the point where we are overwhelmed and we are stressed. How do we cut to the core, take time to reflect, and during this reflection time, we go through these 8 questions, which I will go through with you right now. All right? So question number 1, reflection number 1. What do I really want for my children? Now, this is an important starting point for our reflection, because this, in a sense, defines the goal for us as parents. In the medium and long term, what do we really want for our children? And so what is the objective for my parenting? What is the long-term goal? What is the most important thing, to gauge whether I've been effective as a parent? Now, I've been giving parenting talks, as Winston has said, for many years, about 25 years now, in university, in schools. I've had the blessing of meeting many thousands of parents all over Malaysia and in other countries as well. And I can tell you that in my time with parents, when I address this particular question and I process this question with parents, whether it's in a big group or whether it's one-to-one in a coaching session, inevitably, the answer usually is this, which is most parents will arrive at the conclusion that what I really want for my children, because I love them so much, is that I want them to live this full and happy and meaningful life. Now, of course, different parents may phrase it a little bit differently. They may use slightly different words, but generally speaking, this is the conclusion. So I rarely have I met with a parent where they don't arrive at this conclusion after they reflect themselves on what they really want for their children. So of course, it makes sense, right? I mean, we want our children to be happy. We want our children to live a full life, and that's sort of the long-term goal, so that, in the next 10 or 20 or 30 years' time, when our children are growing up, and so you just picture in your mind, and your children are now 30 or 40 or 50 years old and they're visiting you, right? And you're sort of, engaging with them and talking with them. I think the most important thing to a parent is not so much, what profession are they in, where are they living, what's their lifestyle, I think the most important question we have in our mind is, are you happy, right? So when we're catching up with our children, I think, the thing that would give us the greatest joy and happiness is when we see that they have found their place in this world, isn't it? So whether it's in their career, in their family, in their lifestyle, in their travel, in their hobbies, what we really want to see is that they've found something that gives them this sense of meaning and fulfillment. Again, they're not perfect. Nobody lives a perfect life. Nobody's happy all the time. But I think generally speaking, that they're living this full and happy life, and they've found something that gives them this sense of fulfillment and happiness and joy. And that's what we're looking at. And I think conversely, what would really break our heart as a parent, I think, the greatest nightmare for a parent is that, as your child grows up, and you're seeing them, that they are in this life where they're not finding happiness, so they may be still lost, or they may be, in a situation that is bringing them a lot of sadness and misery, or, they're not finding a job or career that gives them a sense of fulfillment, or they're not living the kind of life that they want, So I think as parents, again, it comes down to this idea of we want them to be happy, right? So it's not so much a specific thing we want them to do. to be a doctor or a lawyer, or to, live a certain lifestyle. I think generally speaking, what we really want for them is that we want them to be happy. And whatever it is that they choose to do in the end of their lives, that they find this fulfillment and happiness as opposed to this emptiness and misery and frustration, right? Okay, so I think that's a good starting point. That makes sense. That seems very, very obvious. So what is the barrier to this? Well, I think, there are a couple of things that sometimes distract us from this goal, that sometimes leads us to forget that the fact that the goal of parenting is really that we want our children to be happy. So one and that example of a distraction is when parents, we become very competitive, right? When we start comparing ourselves to other families, to other parents, and therefore we compare our children to other children, And look, I know we've just finished the Olympics. Human beings by nature are very competitive, which is, to be honest, all right in things like sports and business. But when you start applying it to parenting, now that's a problem then. Because then we get distracted. We start to forget what's really good for our children, what brings joy to our children. We start focusing on, hey, look, as a parent, am I beating other parents? And I know how parents are, whether it's in WhatsApp groups or when parents come together, parents can be incredibly competitive. Right? So you're not just comparing things like careers or cars or sizes of our houses. We start comparing children, and then as parents, we start feeling a bit left behind. We start feeling a bit inferior because, this child can speak 5 languages and this other parent's child can, play 8 musical instruments. So now we have to get our kids to play 9 musical instruments. Or because this child can speak, 50,000 words by the time they're 4 years old. So we are pressuring our kid to speak, 51,000 words because we don't want to be left behind, right? So I think that's an example of a distraction that takes us away from the real goal of parenting. So this is very natural. I mean, nothing to feel ashamed of. I think all of us at some point, we get this competitive instinct, which, like I say, it's all right in other arenas. I mean, if you're competitive in golf, great, nothing wrong with that. Competitive in sports, in business, in other areas. But when it comes to our children, we need to be really careful that we are not using our children as trophies, And our children don't become demonstrations of how great I am as a parent, and therefore there you see how successful my kid is. And so our kid then becomes a subject of a KPI, like it becomes like another goal, another objective. So we are pressuring our poor kids like crazy to conform to a certain ideal because we don't want to be left behind, right? And I think this reveals a little bit of our own insecurities, which I want to say is very natural. So all parents, we feel insecure sometimes. All of us have a bit of an imposter syndrome where we're thinking, am I really a good parent? Am I really a good father or mother? Right? I'm sure all of you have thought like that. Certainly myself as well. So all of us in our times of doubt, we're thinking, my goodness, why am I doing as a parent? Look at all of these other parents, they're doing this and that, and activities from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., especially during this COVID crisis. We read on our Facebook pages about all of these amazing parents who are doing fantastic things, and we're thinking, my goodness, I'm so left behind, man. I must be the lousiest parent in the world, And so I think some of that insecurity sometimes sparks us to overcompensate by pressuring kids, And so we want to keep up because we don't want to feel as though we are failures as parents. And therefore, we're pushing our kids to do all kinds of things so that they become trophies that we can demonstrate. So whenever we have a family reunion, or whenever we are, having a reunion with friends, or we are, out after school when we are mixing around with other parents, at least we've got something to brag about, And I think that's a temptation that we need to resist. All right. So these are 2 distractions. Now, the third distraction that sometimes makes us forget about the goal of parenting, which is to, help our kid have a happy and a full life. The third distraction is sometimes we mix our own dreams into the whole process. So when we are trying to prepare our children for the future, unconsciously or consciously, our own aspirations, some of them unmet, get into the mix. And so, my kid, okay, you have to go to football class because I never got to play football, so you have to play football. I never got to learn the piano, so you've got to learn the piano. I never got to do ballet, so you've got to do ballet. You've got to go overseas to study. You've got to do this and that. And so a lot of this, nothing to do with this, nothing to do with the child, it's really got to do with this, the fact that I want to do all of these things, and because, my family wasn't rich enough or we didn't have the opportunity, so I'm making you do all of this stuff, because then the child becomes the vehicle through which we live our dreams. I'm sure you've heard of this very common psychological phenomena, right? So we are living our dreams through our children. So I want to asks us to really reflect. So this is the first reflection. This is where we really need to search our hearts and ask, what is our motive when we parent? What is the guiding principle? Is it these three things? That I want to feel better about myself as a parent, and that's why I do what I do. I want to be competitive. I want to be better than other parents. I want to live my dreams through my children. So we need to be careful, because the problem with these three distractions, when you think about it, is the fact that all of them are our own. It's our own competition with other parents. It's our own insecurities. It's our own unfulfilled dreams. So that's the problem, when everything is our own, isn't it? It's not about the child anymore. It's about us. And that's where I think we can be tempted and distracted to sort of go off course as a parent. And I want to say again, I'm not saying this to make anybody feel guilty, because all of us, I think at some point, sometimes have fallen into this trap. Right? Sometimes, in our moment of weakness, we have allowed ourselves to veer away from what is the key objective for parenting. What do I really want for my child? Versus these are some of my own psychological issues that I need to work through. All right. So the shift that needs to take place is between, moving from, focusing on me as the parent. So I need to move away from, I'm parenting to make myself feel good. I'm parenting to make myself feel proud. I'm parenting to make myself, feel better about my life because I'm living my dreams through my children. And shifting that to what we call child-centered parenting, which is that the goal of parenting is the child, right? That I want my child to be happy. It's not about me. Now, later on in the session, we'll talk about how I look after myself. So I'm not saying we shouldn't look after ourselves. Of course, we should take care of ourselves, our own mental health, our physical health. So I'm not saying that we sacrifice everything for our children. What I'm saying is, when we are making decisions about our child, for our child, we need to be clear about our motives. Are we doing it for the good of our children? Because we want to prepare them to grow up in a healthy way so that they can live this happy and full life? Or are we making these decisions because we want to feel better about ourselves? Right? So I think this is the first reflection that I want us to do. So it's good regularly to check on ourselves. What are our motives? And have we sort of, inadvertently fallen into the trap of being so competitive, so insecure, with relatives and other parents, that we've started to veer off course? All right. So that's reflection number one. So let's go to reflection number two. Second question that helps us find clarity about what our role is as parents is, how am I helping my children discover what they want in their life? All right. So how do I help my children find their own path in life? Because earlier we said, if my goal as a parent, my greatest desire is I just want to see my child happy, right? I want them to be able to go on and live this full life so that they are fulfilled and they are happy and they are, they find meaning in their life. Now, in order to do that, my child needs to know what they want, isn't it? Right? They are not able to be happy unless my child finds that sense of clarity about what do they really want in life. What makes them happy? What gives them this sense of meaning and fulfillment? What kind of life do they want to live? So that's the question that our children at some point in life need to answer. Now, of course, this is not something that they will answer necessarily at 5 years old or 10 years old or 15. I mean, in fact, most children, I think most of us were sort of wandering around until probably about university age or beyond, right? Until we were young adults, until we finally understood and were able to answer that question. But nonetheless, I think as parents, this is a really important role that we play. How do I help my child answer this question, right? Because, as we've said, without that, sometimes we are lost. So I like this quote, because often in life, we are so ultra competitive to the point where, it's all about speed. It's all about being number one. It's all about beating the competition. So that's the rat race, right? The rat race is about how fast are you, and if we're not careful, if we raise children to think in that way, it's all about being number one. It's all about winning. It's all about being the fastest, to the point where we don't encourage them to ask the question, but actually, where are you going? Is the direction that this race is heading in, is that the direction you want to go in for your life? right? So that's why the rat race, the problem I have with the rat race is not about competition. Competition is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being driven. Nothing wrong with being motivated. I mean, I'm like that. And I think my children also are like that, very competitive. Nothing wrong with wanting to be successful. I think the issue with me with the rat race is if it's all about just winning and competition, then like I've said in these slides here, then it's all about speed without direction, without reflection. Nobody knows where they're going, So nobody is thinking about, I'm winning, but what is this game that I'm winning in? And is this the game I want to win in? Is this the direction I want to climb in, right? So I think it's really important that, from a young age, that we make it clear to our children that, look, in life, nothing wrong with success and competition, but in the end of the day, you shouldn't live your whole life following other people. And that's the rat race, right? You just follow. Other rats are moving in this direction, you follow. Without thinking about, is this what you really want for your life? Is this how you're going to really find value? All right. So finding your path is about letting go of, I need to be like everybody else, isn't it? So that in the end of the day, our children are not living other people's dreams. They're not just following friends. They're not just following the crowd, right? It's about sometimes choosing maybe the road less traveled. It's about choosing what they want for their life. And I think when we look at our own lives, that's really the only way to find happiness, right? You follow people your whole life, even at the end of the journey, you will never ever feel satisfied because there's always somebody else that is a bit faster ahead of you. So I think it's about finding your own path rather than comparing yourself to the whole wide world, right? And many of us, like adults, we have done that to the point where there are people who are 40, 50 years old who, by all accounts, they're successful. They've gone to the best universities, they've got the best results, they've got the most high-paying jobs, they've got the biggest house, biggest car. So, in terms of the rat race, they've won. They've climbed the corporate ladder to the point where they've got all the things that other people don't have. But, you and I realize, as a psychologist, my path has encountered many of these people, hundreds, thousands of them, where they've got everything that everybody considers to be success. These are the markers for success. These are the KPIs for success. And some people have everything, and yet they're so unhappy, isn't it? There's an emptiness about themselves that makes all of us sad because, that's not what they really wanted in the first place. And from the beginning, they were chasing after these things because that's what everybody else says. Well, you have to get this, you have to do this, you have to do that, without really thinking about what makes them happy and what gives them a sense of fulfillment. So I think as parents, we need to be wary of this, right? We need to, in a sense, give our children the courage from a young age to say, look, in the end of the day, it's all right. You can, it's all right to look at what friends are doing, to learn from other people. Nothing wrong with that. But in the end of the day, don't be a slave to what other people are doing, right? Find your own path. Make your own decisions about your own life. You're not living other people's lives, and certainly not Papa and Mommy's lives, right? That's something I tell my children all the time. It's not about living our life. It's not, your life is your life. You're not a slave to it. You be happy, we're happy. All right? So whatever career you choose, wherever you choose to live, whether you choose to be single or have a family, all of these decisions, whether you choose to travel the whole world in your life, that's completely up to you. You make the decisions that you feel will give you that life of fullness. All right, so don't chase after other people, and after a while, don't care what other people think, which is the same advice we give ourselves, isn't it? So earlier on in my earlier point, I said, as parents, you need the courage to stop caring what other people think. Stop caring about what other friends think, other parents think. You can listen to advice from everybody else, that's fine. But as parents, you need to be courageous enough to stand up for your child and say, look, I'm going to do what's good for my child. And I don't care what other parents think about me, because as a parent, my responsibility is to love my child, not to care about public opinion, right? Okay, and so I think the same thing for our children, the same value. We want to say, in the end of the day, true courage is you pick your pathway, all right? So don't follow the rat race. Don't follow blindly, because you follow blindly, you may achieve success in other people's eyes, but in the end of the day, you yourself may not have happiness and joy and fulfillment, all right? So I think I come back to this, from the first reflection. If the goal is for my children to live a happy, full, and meaningful life, then they need to know what they want in life. And that question is a very loaded question. It seems like a very simple question, but it's a loaded question, which is, What do I want in my life? I mean, it's simple because it doesn't require, I think, a lot of intelligence. You don't need a PhD to answer or ask this question. But I think it's a loaded question because very few of us actually take the time to ask this question for ourselves. And I think that's part of the reason why out of the 6 billion people in the world today, there are a lot of people who are unhappy, who are lost in their life, who are still struggling to find their purpose and their meaning because, unfortunately, their whole lives, they've been very busy doing a lot of things, chasing after other people's dreams, chasing after what they think their parents want them to do. But they've not really stopped to ask the question, what do I want in my life? And so simple phrase, a simple question, but this is really, really important. And so how do we encourage our children, to start asking this question? Now, I'm not saying that you're going to find the answer when they are young. Like I said, most of the time, it's only when they're 18 or 19 or 20 that they finally find what they want. But it's a good habit for them to be clear about what brings them happiness, even at a young age, okay? And okay, what role can we play as parents? Well, there are two things we can do as they are growing up to help them answer this question of what they really want in their life. So there are two tracks, I say, right? And this can be applied to whether it's, deciding what their career is, deciding what life they want to live, deciding on their life pathway, their place in the world. There are two components, right? So component number one is helping them discover themselves. So understanding themselves, their talents, their interests, their personality, their passions, what they really want in life. So that's discovering themselves. The second pathway is discovering the world, right? And so, for the first pathway, our job, I think, is like a life coach, is to encourage them to try different things, encourage them to think about who they are as people, and encourage them to experiment and say, look, try different things, try different interests, different hobbies, different subject areas, so that, your childhood is a bit like talent management. It's about experimenting with a wide array of things so that by the time you're 17, 18, then you sort of know what are the things you do well. What are your talents? What are your strengths? What are your favorite subjects, right? And I would say, therefore, when you're choosing a school as well to enroll your children in, whether it's primary or secondary school, the school philosophy should be to broaden their experience, not to narrow it, So you should go to a school where the philosophy is, look, our approach to school is that we give students and children an opportunity to try many different things. Science and art and performing arts and computing skills and leadership and sports and, try different things and don't be afraid of making mistakes, because when you're children, that's the time, right? To try different things, experiment, of course, with things that are safe, but experiment, try different things so that, at the end of the day, when you're 17, 18, and then you're having to make decisions about universities, careers, lifestyles, what you want to do for your life, you've got enough life experiences, right, to be able to therefore make decisions. I used to be in university for 20 years. I go to all these career guidance fairs, education fairs, and, usually the parents will bring the children and they're all blur, right? And they ask, Dr. Goh, can you please help my son, figure out what career is suitable for them? And I go and talk to this boy or girl and I say, okay, look, tell me a bit about yourself. So what are your interests? I don't know. What are your strengths? I don't know. What are your talents? I don't know. What do you want in life? I don't know. So at that stage, how I can't help you also, right? No career guidance counselor can help you if you yourself have no idea about yourself, right? Only you understand yourself. So I think as parents, that's our role, to give them that courage and confidence to try different things when they are young, so that they're able to find their niche areas. Okay, so if we're too conservative and everything also cannot do, then don't be surprised that by the time your children are old, basically, they don't understand themselves because they've not had any life experiences. So I think that's number one. I think number two is discovering the world. So you're the tour guide. Parents, the papa and mommy, we are the tour guide. We are there to enlarge their world, make their world bigger, not smaller. We are there to tell them, look, this is a huge world. The world is much bigger than Malaysia, and where you are. The world is so huge when it comes to careers, industries, life opportunities, countries, cultures, And so, again, I think as parents, our job is to make the world bigger for them and to let them experience and understand, look, this is a huge world. And therefore, when you're finding your way and you're making decisions about what you want to do, what you want to study, what you want to work as, where do you want to live in the world. My job as a parent is, I hope I've given you enough exposure of the world that eventually when you're old enough, you're able to then find your place in this world. You're able to then match careers, right? So when you put these two things together, number one, help my child discover themselves, understand themselves. And number two, help them understand the world. Now, the combination of these two things then help them find that clarity. All right. So this is a really important role as a parent. Too often parents worry about, look, I just want to make sure that my children get straight A's, get the top results, go into the best universities, get the best jobs. But I mean, what's the point if your child doesn't know what they want to do in university, or what they want to do beyond university, or maybe they may not even want to go to university, So the idea here is, what's the point of pushing them to succeed if they have no sense of direction? So that's the rat race, right? That's the trap of the rat race. Then they are very successful doing something that doesn't bring them any joy or any meaning or any fulfillment in their life, right? So this is our role as parents, and we can partner with the schools to do this. I'm not saying that you're the only one responsible for this. You can work with other partners, educators, teachers, career guidance counselors, universities, to say, okay, my role is I want to bring you to a level when you're 18, 19, where you understand yourself and you understand the world. And that's one of the greatest gifts parents can give, to help their child reach a stage where they know what they want in life, right? Okay. Let's go to reflection number 3. The third question that helps us find clarity in our parenting is this question: what do my children need to learn to achieve what they want in their lives? Right? Now, this is a really important question because, so we have talked about, I want my child to be happy. For my child to be happy, reflection number 2 says, I want my child to, in a sense, know what they want in their life, right? So I want them to have a dream. I want them to have their own goals in life. Great. So now they've got their dreams and goals, but we realize just because you have a dream and a goal doesn't not automatically mean you're going to fulfill them. Huh? I mean, in this real world, it's not easy to actually achieve your dreams and goals. Almost. So whether your child's dream is to start their own business, to be the next, Elon Musk, or the next, Steve Jobs, or to start their own family, or so whether it's personal life or career, we realize, I think, as adults, everything in this life is not easy. To achieve success in anything, whether it's career, hobbies, sports, music, business, anything you name it, it requires hard work, discipline, and certain competencies and skill sets, isn't it? I mean, Olympic athletes don't win the gold medal. I mean, just by sheer willpower and motivation. I mean, they need skills. They've been training for years to develop a certain set of skills, mindset, so mental skills, physical skills, in order to be in a position where they are even in the running to win a medal, right? So we know how difficult life is. So I guess the question here is, if I'm preparing my child and I want them to succeed in what they want to do in their life, right? So success is not measured in terms of competing with other people necessarily, but it's about success on their own terms, success in the area of their choosing. It's still going to take a lot of hard work and certain skill sets and competencies. So what do my children need, right? And look, I think there are different models. I mean, we're all wary of the fact that the world now has changed, so what our children need to succeed in today's real VUCA world is very different from when we were growing up in the 1980s and 90s, and we came out of university at a certain era. And of course, at that time, in the 1990s, there were certain skill sets that made us successful, in university or in work, in our careers, in life in general. We realized that the world has shifted. So of course, some of the skills are still common, but some of them also have changed, And so I think as parents, like educators, we need to keep up with the times. I mean, this is something we did in 2019, where as a school group, we actually went away and we talked to, visionaries, we talked to entrepreneurs, we talked to CEOs, we talked to corporate leaders, science leaders, education leaders, people who are future trenders, who looked at future trends. And we spent 3-4 months figuring out what are the competencies that children need today and tomorrow to sort of thrive and survive in this real world. And we came up with this model. Now, this is just an example of a model. I'm not saying that this is the only model, but I just wanted to give you an example of the kinds of things that educators today are thinking about. right? So when we talk about future readiness, we talk about how do I equip my children so that they're gonna be strong and independent enough to not just survive but thrive in the real world. So these are good examples. I mean, we looked at the fourth industrial revolution, we looked at the VUCA nature of the world, we came up with some of these things. So for example, we talked about digital mindedness because, I mean, World Economic Forum and actually any forum that looks at future trends say that 80-90% of jobs in the future are going to involve digital technology. Can't escape it. The fourth industrial revolution means whether you talk about the internet or computing or AI or VR or big data analytics, any profession that you want to do, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or an architect or a business leader or a teacher or a psychologist or whatever it is you end up doing, all of these professions are going to have a strong digital component to them, right? So we would say that that's one skill. And that's why, I do want to encourage my children to be comfortable with digital technology, with computing, to keep in touch with what are the latest technologies out there. And I guess to see computers and devices as not just entertainment, right? So it's not just about watching videos, playing games, but, for them to have this digital mindedness to realize it's a powerful devices. This is a doorway to infinite amount of knowledge, power, processing, so those of you in tech, I think, understand what I'm talking about now. We need to move away from this idea of devices are entertainment to devices are these tools to do so many things, to create, to learn, to develop, to collaborate, right? And of course, we've been learning about this last 2 years because everything is by remote. So most of us are relying on computers, devices, the internet, sessions like today to connect with one another, right? So the power of technology. So that's certainly important. And I want to say that that's more than just coding and programming. So in our schools, for example, we focus on, it's more about design thinking. It's more about exposing them to technologies and teaching them how to think about how new technology, so whether it's VR or AI or robotics, how does it solve a particular real life problem in the world, right? And thinking them to think like that will then equip them, whatever industry they end up working as, right? Whatever they end up doing in the future, it helps them then navigate the digital world, 4IR, right? We also talk about things like thinking, scientific skills. So, I mean, I'm, of course, being a psychologist, I'm very much into science and scientific thinking, logical thinking, research, empirical skills, data analytics, learning how to connect the dots. I think it was Li Ka-shing, the famous CEO who said, we live in a world of synthesis where, we are flooded with information from the internet. It's ocean of information. Everybody has access, but very few people can connect the dots, So whether you're an entrepreneur or a researcher or an inventor, it's about connecting the data points and then seeing a trend when nobody else sees the trend, isn't it? So that's what we want to train our children to do, not just memorize information and pass exams, but we want to challenge their mind to become a sharp tool, to be able to navigate the world of the internet, analyze, evaluate what is reliable information and not reliable information, to be resourceful so that they know where to get information from the internet, what questions to ask, right? So all of these are thinking, scientific skills. Communication skills, we all know, right? So the need to communicate, the need to be able to engage with other people. So we can call these people skills, communication skills, learning to work collaboratively, right? Together, so that whatever company you end up working in, whatever culture you end up working in, you've got these skills to connect to other people. And that's linked to global mindedness, because most of our children, like I said earlier, we want to expand the world for them, right? We want to say, look, you can work anywhere. You can stay in Malaysia, that's fine. We love Malaysia. You can go abroad. You can work with people from many different cultures. Most of us who even work in an organization in Malaysia, we are working with people from 50, 60 different countries. So we want them to have this cultural sensitivity, right? This cultural, versatility where they can work with people from anywhere in the world and they still can engage, They're sensitive to other people's cultures. They're able to get along, and more importantly, they're able to appreciate other people's cultures. So I've always told my own children, the world is such a big, beautiful place. It's such a shame if you don't travel, you don't go and explore and experience the big wide world, right? Entrepreneurial skills, of course, we talk about, because of 4IR, because of the digital technology, a lot of barriers to entry have dropped. So, now it's a lot easier to start your business compared to 30, 40 years ago where you needed lots of capital, you needed warehouses, you needed physical facilities. Now, a lot of people are starting businesses with nothing, right? From their homes. because the technology enables more entrepreneurs to enter the field. So that's great. I mean, I think the statistics show that our children's generation are going to be 3-4 times more likely to start their own businesses than our generation. So entrepreneurship skills, business skills, financial literacy, being able to look after their own finances, design thinking is a big thing now in the 4IR world. So learning how to apply innovation, creativity to solve real life problems, all right? Art and culture, I mean, I think that's a great thing. I mean, it may not be a have to have, but if we are preparing children to have a happy life, a fulfilled life, then it's not just all about work and earning money, right? It's also about, teaching them how to appreciate the beautiful things in life, right? Learning how to go into an art gallery and love paintings, and understand the beauty of a Rembrandt and a Leonardo da Vinci, and to go to the Sistine Chapel and appreciate what Michelangelo has done, right? So whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's plays, films, I mean, I'm a film buff, so we have movie nights all the time. So I love movies, we love music, and so, I mean, we also don't want to raise children who don't know how to appreciate anything, isn't it? So all they know how to do is study hard and work hard and get money, but they don't know how to spend their time or money because they don't appreciate culture. So I think art and culture also very important, right? That's part of, I think, what gives them that fulfillment and meaning in their life. Fitness, sports, I mean, this is important. I'm a fitness sports buff as well. I love watching sports. I already missed the Olympics, all right? Thank goodness Premier League is coming, to fill the void in our lives. So I'm a sports spectator as well. I watch all kinds of sports, but it's not just watching, right? It's also encouraging our children to try out different sports. And I mean, we don't need to be professional athletes, we don't need to win Olympic gold medals, but it's just for enjoyment so that we are physically fit, right? So teaching them different sports, exposing them to outdoor activities, I think Malaysia, it's such a beautiful country. So, I mean, whenever kids are always indoors or the parents don't encourage them to go outdoors, I say, sayang, man, such a waste. One of the most beautiful natural, I mean, we've got so many beautiful things. We've got the sea, you go snorkeling in Redang and all, beautiful. We've got the mountains, we've got the forests, I mean, nature is such a gift in Malaysia. So even during lockdown, I mean, even when we can't travel overseas, we say, cuti Malaysia, there's so many things we can do here that is beautiful. And so, I think this younger generation, it's part of our job is to inculcate that love of nature. So it's not just survival skills because we think they're going to be shipwrecked in 20 years' time. It's not just about how to pitch a tent or start a fire, which I think are important, how to do CPR, how to do emergency, sort of response. But more than that, it's about loving nature, isn't it? It's about learning to get out of the aircon room once in a while and walk and enjoy trees and the breeze and the sea and the ocean and, and I think to me, that's part of living a full life, isn't it? How can you live a full and happy life when you don't know how to appreciate nature? So that's part also of preparing them to live this full life. And then you notice below that, I've got 2 boxes that undergird everything. I think these are the 2 most important things in my mind. One is psychological health and resilience. I know during this lockdown, we've been made aware that this is really important, right? Psychological health is important. I mean, depression rates are high. Unfortunately, things like suicide rates have gone up as well as people are isolated, they are disconnected from their community. So I think we've all realized that mental health is really important. So if I want my children to live a happy and full life, it's not just about, like I say, academics and studying for exams. It's also about, giving them habits to look after their own mental health. Learn how to manage stress, right? Learn how to, be watchful of, dealing with pressure. And if they've got mental health challenges and issues, don't be afraid to go get help, seek a counselor, seek a psychologist. Nothing wrong with that. I've been saying this to my own staff, to our own students, that no, nothing to feel ashamed of. Me as a psychologist, as a CEO, I myself am getting mental health help all the time because we need this. So in the same way as, when you're having physical health issues, you go and see a doctor. Nobody feels ashamed, isn't it? So in the same way, if you need psychological help, I think it's also part of the culture to say to our children, nothing wrong with that. That there's no stigma. Just go. If you need help, talk to somebody. Go and get support, right? So that's part of psychological health. And I think resilience, that's about building this inner strength and resilience. So because we know it's not going to be an easy life. It's not going to be an easy world. Whatever path they end up doing, even when they choose their own dreams and goals, it's not going to be an easy climb. I think the analogy is it's like climbing Mount Everest. And to climb Mount Everest, there are going to be good days and bad days. There are going to be real challenges. There are going to be times where we feel like giving up. And that's where, you need that resilience on how do we cope with the stress, with the pressure, with the anxiety. All right. So that's psychological health and resilience. The second box that is important below that is this moral courage. So I think we also realize as parents that we don't want to just breed very successful kids who get what they want, but they're selfish, they're spoiled, they're very self-centered, they don't care about other people in their community, right? So part of our message is to say, look, moral values is a part of having a happy life. What we're telling our kids is you'll never be happy unless you're a moral being. You may think you're happy. If you're selfish and you step over other people to get what you want and you kill everybody else, stab everybody else in the back, and you may think you get your goals, but we can tell you at the end of that road, there's never fulfillment and happiness. People who do that cannot sleep at night, So in the end of the day, if we are basically helping our kids get the full package, so it's not just success, but it's also, you don't sell your soul to get success, right? It's about being people of integrity, being true to your values. And I think all of your families, you've got certain values like you hold true, whether it's honesty, whether it's helping other people, kindness, respect for other people, loving others, having an impact, loving the environment, nature, whatever the values are. I think that box is really important because we don't want to breed a psychopath, right? Who is going to be super successful at, destroying the whole world, right? So I think part of happiness and fulfillment is ensuring that our children are still grounded. They don't forget their roots. They don't forget their culture, their values. For those of you who are religious, that spirituality is very important, right? That God-centeredness. I think that the term some of us use is, we want to raise children who are after God's own heart, right? So it's not just about living for themselves, but they also have a spiritual, moral dimension. I like the term moral courage because it takes courage to be moral, right? It takes courage to stand up for your beliefs. Okay, so anyway, these are just examples. What I've done is just introduce you. This is something that our old school sort of, practice, and we use it as a model to guide us in terms of how are we preparing children and the next generation with the competencies, the skill sets, the mindsets to really live this full, happy, successful life, right? So, you can take some of these boxes and ideas, you can compile your own. I think the important thing is you as a parent should take time to reflect on what are the qualities you think your children need. Okay, so these are just examples I'm sharing. They may be inspiring some ideas in your head, but in the end of the day, it's you and your husband and wife that need to sit down and then determine in this family, what are the 7, 8, 9, 10 things that we want to focus on to ensure that when we raise children, it's going to be all round. It's going to be holistic. It's not just going to be one or two things. I think, traditionally we, sometimes parents talked about a very narrow focus. As parents, we just care about exam results. You do well in the exam and then everything else will follow. And then we realize that it's not true. There are a whole generation of very successful exam candidates who, like I say, get the best universities, the best jobs, but are still miserable in their lives because they don't have the whole package, you see. Either they don't have the people skills, so they don't have good relationships with their family and their friends, or they don't have the, physical fitness, so they don't look after their own physical health, so they're getting sick all the time, or maybe emotionally, psychologically, they're not strong, so they're going through a really difficult time. So you see that from the model I shared with you, to live a full and happy life, you need all of this, We as parents, no longer can we just say, get A's in the exam and your whole life will take care of yourself. I think as parents, we need a more holistic, big picture view. Okay? All right. So that's reflection number 3. Now let's go to reflection number 4. All right. Now this is something that, is close to, I think, all of our hearts. We talk about the issue of love. This forms, in a sense, a foundation for everything else we do as parents, right? So the question here is, do my children know I love them? Now, I'm very sure you love your children, so I'm not questioning that. Huh? So the question is not so much, do you love your children, right? The question is, do your children know that you love them? Is that something that you have communicated to them in some way? Is it evident in not just what you say, but your deeds as well? So we say not just in words, but in deeds. Not just in what I say, but in my actions as well. Am I underlining and reminding my children that they are important to me, that I do love them, that I'm willing to sacrifice things for them, for their happiness, right? So let's think about a few things. First, I want to define love, because I think it's a word that we all use, but oftentimes maybe it's misunderstood, and sometimes we use it so often to the point where it loses some meaning. All right. Okay. So what do we mean by love? I think number one, we need to remind ourselves love is not a feeling. It's an intentional choice. It's a decision. And this, by the way, doesn't just apply to children. It applies to any kind of love. The love you have between husband and wife, the love you have for your friends, your relatives, your parents, your children, your siblings. Any kind of love relationship is not about just falling in love. It's not infatuation. Infatuation comes and goes. Feelings come and go. It's about a decision. It's about waking up every day and saying, I am committed. I am committed to helping this person, supporting this person, loving this person. So committed to do what? So that's the second box. Now, I like this definition of love. I've sort of paraphrased it a bit, but I remember reading this many years ago when I was a young psychology student in a book called The Road Less Traveled. And in that book, the author, M. Scott Peck, defined love as a commitment to helping somebody grow spiritually, grow emotionally, grow in their life. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing a bit, and so I've sort of reworded it a little bit, but I think it captures that spirit that, I'm committed. It's a decision I make as a parent to say, I want to help my child grow and find fullness and joy in their life. So it goes back to reflection number one. So love is a decision to say, I'm committed to do that. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to sacrifice time and energy and effort to help my child so that in the end of the day, they're able to live this happy life. So how do I do that? So that's not feelings, That's not empty gestures. That's not talking anymore. That's in actual action. Am I committed to doing that? And like I say, it's not just children. It's actually marriage as well, what is marriage? It's the same thing. It's when I say I love my wife, or you love your husband or wife. It's not saying I feel something. That one is puppy love. We talk about that, when we are teenagers. It's a commitment. It's saying when I wake up every day, my role as a husband is to how do I create fullness of life for my wife? How do I support her? How do I make her happy? How do I support her growth as a person? How do I create opportunities for her to find fulfillment and fullness of life and happiness in her life, right? So whether it's marriage, whether it's parenting, it's the same concept. Love is a choice. Love is a commitment to help somebody live a full and happy life, right? Number three, it's unconditional. I think with children, this is particularly important because I think at a young age, even children see if our love comes with string attached, and so my humble opinion as a psychologist, as a parent myself, I would say that's not healthy. I think a healthy family environment is where your children know that there are no strings attached. They don't need to jump through hoops. They don't need to get straight A's in their exam. They don't need to win gold medals in the Olympics. They don't need to, fulfill your KPIs before you love them. I think that's different. It's okay to encourage children to thrive. That's different. It's okay to coach, inspire them to, be wholehearted about what they're doing. Nothing wrong with that. But we don't hold love ransom. We don't say, okay, love is the price. Okay, you do all of these things, then Papa and Mommy will love you. So I think that's something we want to avoid. Because I can tell you again as a psychologist, the world is full of broken people, very unhappy people because their whole life, they've been chasing after their parents' love. And after a while, they realize it's impossible to get it. Because the parents are never proud. They're never happy with them. They do whatever it is. I know grown adults who are 40, 50, 60 years old who are still in psychological bondage because they're still trying to make their parents happy. And these are, 50, 60-year-olds. Their whole life has been, in a sense, wasted away trying to fulfill somebody's expectations that are unfulfillable. And what's the point of that, The parents are miserable, the children are miserable. No, it's a lose-lose situation. So I would say, no, it's not about holding them ransom. And look, I'm in no way saying you shouldn't encourage your children to succeed in life. I'm not saying that. But love is not, like I say, the carrot we put at the end of the stick. Love needs to be unconditional. I think for a healthy, a healthy development of a child. You don't want your child chasing after your love. You want a child that is secure in your love. And because they are in this stable relationship and they know, look, no matter what happens, Papa and Mommy love me. They may not agree with what I do. They may scold me sometimes. They may discipline me. They may, disagree with my life choices. They may be angry at me. But, throughout everything, good and bad, I know they still love me. And in a VUCA world where everything is changing, VUCA world means everything is changing. A fourth industrial revolution, business is changing, politics is changing, pandemics are changing. Everything in the world is unstable. Then their child finds a safe haven in saying, the one thing that gives me this sense of stability is I know my parents love me. I know there's this place in this world, and that doesn't change. My parents love and support. Right? So in that kind of psychological context, I can tell you, then the child is more courageous, man. It's not as though they're going to be unmotivated. When they're in that loving environment, it gives them courage and confidence to go and conquer the world, man, right? To go and try different things, right? Rather than to be fearful. Okay, so three things in terms of the nature of love. It's intentional choice. It's about a commitment to help them grow in a healthy way so that they can live a full and happy life. And number three, it should be unconditional. It's not something where, today I love you, tomorrow I don't love you because you didn't hand in the homework, because you didn't wash the dishes, I don't love you anymore. I may be unhappy that you didn't wash the dishes. I may scold you because you didn't do your chores, but that doesn't mean I've stopped loving you. So I think we need to be careful. And that's why even the way we praise children, when my children do something that we're proud of, then we use the word, I'm proud of you, well done, you won this competition, great job, and you work very hard, we're proud of you, you did this, you did that, you baked your own cake, you learned a new recipe. All of these things are praiseworthy. We praise them. But you see, I never then say, because you got the A, I love you very much. Because you mastered this recipe, I love you very much. Because you won this math competition, I love you very much. Love is not in the picture. Then we talk about well done, I'm proud of you, but love, that's something that sits alone. It's something that is unconditional, and our children need to understand that. All right? Okay. Now, I want to go to this next quote. It's interesting, it's controversial, but it's very common. So when I give these parenting talks, and of course, I have contact with both the parents and the children. And oftentimes, of course, I'm also in contact with the grown-up children. For 20 years, I was in a university where, in a sense, is all your children grown up already. Then they come into my office and, this is a common refrain, This is something that I've heard many, many times where some children will say, I think my parents love me. They say they love me. But, I don't think they like me. And I know that sounds a bit odd, right? But I just want to explain. It's a true phenomena. So sometimes our children detect from us that, you say you love me and this and that, but I feel as though you don't even enjoy my company, right? You can't stand being with me. You don't want to spend time with me. You don't like me as a person. So you say you love me, but you don't even like me as a person. You don't even enjoy spending time with me, And I just want to introduce you to an interesting psychological concept, right? We call this dual attitudes. I remember lecturing this in social psychology to my year 1 psychology class for many, many years. And dual attitudes basically is a phenomena where we say it's possible as human beings for us to hold contradictory attitudes at the same time. Very natural. It doesn't mean there's anything abnormal or wrong with you. This is all very natural. And we do this all the time in different relationships. So the example I give here is with our children, right? So on one hand, we may hold the attitude that, of course, you ask me, Dr. Goh, do I love my children? Of course, what kind of stupid question is that? Of course, I love my children. Of course, I enjoy them. I see them as a blessing. I give thanks to God every day for them. Of course, who are you to question me, right? But at the same time, sometimes unconsciously, right? We may have this sense of resentment sometimes, so it's very natural. I'm just giving some examples. I'm not saying all of you are like that, but I'm saying if you feel these dual attitudes, don't think that you're a bad parent, right? You're just a human being. So for example, many parents also, along with feeling very happy and proud and blessed to have children, on the other hand, they also feel some resentment about, you know what, sometimes if we didn't have children, I think my career would be more advanced. If we didn't have children, we'd be richer. I'm sure in some of your moments, parents are thinking like that. If you didn't have children, my goodness, no need to save up for their college, university education or school education. How much more money we will have to travel the whole world, and we don't need them dragging along. And, without children, I don't need to wake up so early and wake them up from school. Without children, my time will be a lot more free. My life will be very different. So I want to say, very natural to think like that. Right? It doesn't make you some evil person. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It just makes you a human being. All of us, I can tell you, sometimes hold these dual attitudes. So on one hand, it doesn't mean you don't love your children. That's what I'm saying. It's possible to do both. On one hand, to love them, enjoy them. On the other hand, also sometimes to feel this sense of resentment, anger, frustration. I mean, another common one is some parents, when I talk to parents, they say, look, when I really dig down deep, I realize, I do have resentment towards this child of mine, this son or daughter, because I realized since young, this son and daughter, they love their mother more. They're closer to my wife or closer to my husband than me. And so even though I don't realize it, or I think it's a silly thing, I feel a bit jealous, and maybe that's the reason why there's some anger and resentment. And this anger, resentment, frustration, sometimes comes out in behaviors that we don't realize are happening. Like, we say things to hurt them. We do things to be cruel to them. Sometimes it comes out in a moment of frustration. And when we say it, when we do it, after a while, we feel very guilty, right? We don't realize, why did I do that? I don't really mean that. Why did I say this thing to hurt my daughter or my son? But I just want to say, this is common. Parents sometimes do this. So I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I'm just saying this to make you aware that there's this phenomena, right, of dual attitude. Sometimes as parents, like any human beings, these are the same feelings we feel towards whether it's a husband or wife or a best friend or a boss at work or colleagues. And by the way, your children also have dual attitudes towards you, all right? So I'm sure your children love you. At the same time, you also infuriate them, isn't it? There are many times where your children say, you're my papa and mommy, they're holding me back, so conservative, kill my joy, So your children also have dual attitudes towards you, right? It doesn't mean they don't love you, because sometimes they're frustrated with you, right? So I just want to say this is a natural human psychological thing. And the way to deal with this is not to pretend it's not there. In fact, it's to make conscious what is unconscious. That's why some people do go for counseling and psychology sessions to bring up the unconscious, or through reflection, you could do this. And when you search your heart and your mind and you realize, actually, it's true. Sometimes I am a bit cruel to my children. Sometimes I say things that are mean, and I wonder where that's from. And when you search your heart, you realize, maybe I do hold some resentment. Maybe I am angry at them. Maybe I am a bit frustrated. And that's where you have to resolve those attitudes, to say, look, now that I'm aware that it's in there, I need to manage them, because it's actually not my children's fault, isn't it? It's not that they asked to come and ruin my career or disturb my job or whatever it is, or my time. We are the ones who chose to have them. So I'm not going to blame my children for them. And now that I'm aware of these attitudes, fine, it's fine. It's something that is natural, but I'm going to make sure that it doesn't lead to behavior that is destructive or cruel, so much so that my children start to suspect that I don't like them or love them anymore. Okay, so I think that's the purpose of me sharing this, that once we are aware of this, we manage these thoughts and feelings, we resolve them in our own minds and hearts. And this is something that parents can talk to each other about, so that they don't start to impact your relationship with your children. Okay, all right, good. All right, let's move on to reflection number 5, all right? So last reflection, we talk about am I clear in my communication, and do my children know I love them through my actions, right? Not just through my words. So reflection number 5 is, this is about putting, in a sense, our time where our mouth is, right? So that we're not just spouting, I love you, but we're actually demonstrating in serious terms that we are committed to being with our children and being effective parents. So the question here is, what resources do I need to commit to being an effective parent, right? And so I the next slide shows, unfortunately, this is the picture a lot of the times, let's be very honest. And those of us, particularly who are working adults who have other responsibilities, is usually we use up all the petrol by the time we finish work. So by the time it's 5, 6 p.m., I know now we are working from home, but figuratively, even though we are working from home, after the 12 Zoom sessions and meetings and board meetings and doing all the reports, by that stage, we are gone already. We are empty petrol tank already, isn't it? There's nothing left in our petrol tank to sort of be left for our children. And that's why there's no more energy, you know. And when you think about it, when you think about almost anything else we do with our life, we realize that without resources, we cannot be successful at it. Think about our jobs. I mean, we are so careful, you know. If we are having a board meeting next week or important meeting presentation next week, we are so careful. We get enough rest, we sleep well, we change our diet, we exercise, we make sure that we've got enough time to prepare for the board meeting, right? I mean, so we are so careful with our work, isn't it? To ensure that we've got enough time, energy, and thought, mental preparation to be successful in our work. Same thing with anything in life. I mean, even sports. I mean, if you were running the marathon in 1 month's time, I can guarantee you your preparation will be really, really very thorough, right? You know, your diet, your health, your sleeping patterns, your practice times, your run times, just to make sure that on the day itself, you can complete your marathon. So it's interesting. I mean, because I'm sure we are not saying that running a marathon, you know, or our career is more important than our children, isn't it? So I think if we are so careful to allocate, so disciplined to set aside resources for our work, to make sure that we are successful for other areas of our life, all I'm saying is that the same principle need to be applied to our children. So spending time with children, I'm not saying is work, all right? You know, but I'm saying that it will take same resources. It also takes mental energy. It also takes physical energy. So we cannot come back after work and there's nothing left, you know. And we are so tired that we say, okay, look, just leave me alone and everybody don't bother me anymore. And I know sometimes we do that, you know, sometimes really, you know, we are so tired, but this can't be a regular thing, you know. So we need to have the discipline to ensure that we keep something in the tank, enough energy and time so that our children are getting the time and the attention that they need. If not, forget about, I mean, you can learn any parenting technique. It's not going to work because you just don't have the energy and resources to devote to it. Okay, all right. I just before I move on, I mean, I remember a movie I used to watch. I mean, I told you I'm a film buff, right? You know, so I remember in the 90s there was a film called The Paper. It talks about a newspaper, right? How they run a newspaper, directed by I think Ron Howard. And there's a scene in the film I remember when, you know, there's this analogy. I'm going to change it a little bit, but I mean, it's as though, you know, because there's this guy who is so devoted to the work and the wife gets frustrated and the wife says, okay, look, imagine, all right, you know, a terrorist comes and takes your family hostage, your wife and your children, right? And take them hostage and hold a gun or a bomb to their head and say, okay, look, I give you a choice. Either you resign from your job, you give up your career now, or I'm going to kill your family. So you choose career or family. So what choice will you make, right? So it's a bit like the movie, like I paraphrase a little bit. Now, I mean, if I were to ask you that question, I mean, so how? I mean, you let your family die or, you know, give up your career. I think most of you will say, I mean, what kind of stupid question is that, Dr. Goh? I mean, of course, it's so obvious. Of course, I love my family. I'm not going to let my family die, you know, just for a career. Of course, I'm willing to retire or give up my career for my family. No brainer. But you see, that's the problem, you see. Real life never comes down to one big decision. There will be never a time in your life where a situation like that happens, where it's one big decision where, hey, your family die or your career. I mean, that's not going to happen in real life. Real life is actually a series of small decisions every day, isn't it? It's not one big decision. It's not one big circumstance or situation. It's situations every day where you have to make a decision about, hey, look, are you taking enough time and energy for your children or not? And unfortunately, many times, because it's so gradual, we don't get it. You know, we are waiting for the situation where it's dramatic and we have to save our family from the terrorists. Then we will jump in. But my friends, that situation is never going to come. You know, there's never going to be that opportunity to prove your love to your children that way, because that's not real life. It's actually small decisions every day that demonstrate whether you have the discipline and commitment. Do you really mean it when you say you love your children more than your career and job? So what are you willing to set aside? Now, I'm not saying don't care about your job. I mean, I'm a proponent of being wholehearted in whatever we do. So I'm very wholehearted in my work. I love my work. I love starting schools. I love being in education. But I know how to juggle. So we need to have the discipline to say, when it is time to work, I'm wholehearted about work. When it is time to be my children, I need to leave enough in the petrol tank so that I've got the energy, emotional, physical energy, the thoughtfulness, and the time, so that they are not second-class citizens in my work. Okay, so this is deliberate. I mean, this one is plan one. This doesn't come naturally. Just like you plan for anything else in your life, you need to sit down and come up with a way so that you are not running on empty when you come back from work. All right, reflection number 6. All right, what passions do I share with my children? Now, this is important because, we talked about spending time, right? You enjoying time together so that your children don't feel as though it's a burden to you to spend time with them, right? So how do we do that? Okay. So what passions do I share? Well, look, I think, the next slide shows so many things you can do. And I think during lockdown, one of the maybe benefits of us being all trapped together at home is, I know many families have had to find new things to do together. Like you cook together, you watch Netflix together, movies together, watch YouTube videos, play sports, indoor sports, outdoor sports in the garden, whatever it is, right? Because all of us are sort of trying to kill boredom after a while. And so you're finding new things, new challenges. I mean, you've seen videos of parents even coming up with mini Olympics in the house that all of them do. Playing board games is a great thing. I want to say, look, all families are different, right? And if you haven't found something that you enjoy with your children, and the rule is this, you must enjoy it and the children must enjoy it. So it cannot be something they enjoy, you hate, or you love and they hate, right? So that's why my advice here is explore, expand, experiment. I mean, if you haven't found that one thing that you all enjoy doing together, keep looking. It's okay. In fact, you can keep trying and experimenting with different things. You don't need to fix one thing. It doesn't need to be the same thing every day or every week, right? So this is where you can have some fun and get the children involved together. You can, set aside some time to do this. Now, of course, so I think finding the thing is not a problem. There are more than enough things in today's 21st century world for you to choose. And I would say, don't be so conservative. So I've even put gaming there, which I think some parents are thinking, what are you doing? Are you crazy? I'm already worried that my child is addicted to video games. How can parents be involved? I would say, hey, especially for those of you who are worried that your child are addicted to video games, then you should go and share their interest so that you can manage it. And you can say, okay, look, you're really into don't know what, Minecraft or, Dota or whatever. Okay, Papa also wants to learn. Okay, go and teach me. Then I also, two of us, let's play Counter-Strike together. So at least we can share an interest. And then I can also manage your time. So I know that, I know more about the game and I know that you don't need to spend 8 hours a day playing it, and we can manage that and have a balance. But at least, if your child has a passion for video games, at least there's a starting point. But that doesn't need to be the only passion. So you can say, okay, it's 2 hours of video games a week or a day. And then the rest of the time, I also want to do something, right? So let's do other things as well. Let's do outdoor stuff as well. So there's a balance. But I would say have fun with it. Go and experiment as a family. I think one of the difficulties is finding time again, right? So I can say, like many families, we also struggled. I'm busy, my wife is busy, my children are busy. There are some weeks where my children are more busy than we are. So just finding a schedule where 4 of us can find common time so susah, right? So I think it's something we started during the lockdown last year. We call it 5 to 5. So I said 5 p.m. from Saturday night to 5 p.m. on Sunday night. That's family time. So during that time, especially during lockdown, I say we are not allowed to commit to anything else. Nobody schedule any meetings, right? Nobody schedule any work. Homework you finish before 5 p.m. on Saturday, or you wait until after Sunday at 5 p.m. Up to you. And same thing with mommy and papa. So when we do work, when we do emails, all that, we try to keep that time aside. So it could be up to you. We kept 24 hours aside. You can keep 3 hours, 5 hours to begin with, but you need time that you protect, and everybody needs to follow that time. And then you can discuss every week, you do something different. When it's post-lockdown, you can even travel. You can go and visit different towns and places overnight, have expeditions, go visit waterfalls, collect things together, cook things together. So up to you. The children can participate with you to find something that is common. But like I say, if you really want to build that bond, the starting point is start developing things, interest together. So that it's not, you're doing it just to make the children happy, but you're miserable, because that's not sustainable, right? So I think to make it sustainable, it's something that you really do and that all of you enjoy. And of course, as they grow up, their interests will change, right? I think the other thing that is good about this share passion together is, to me, the real enemy in the world is the meh culture, right? What I call apathetic culture. I don't care. So meh culture, meaning nothing excites me. I don't care about anything. You want to cook? Oh, meh, You want to do this new video game? Meh. And what about this new movie? Meh. So to me, that's the worry. When children are not excited about anything, then I get worried. I don't mind them being, passionate about something, whether it's video games or manga or comic books or something, even though it may not be my interest. At least I know there's signs of life. I know there's a heart beating below their chest. I know that they're manic about something. That's good, because you need that passion to be successful in anything in life. So I think as parents, we want to move them from this meh, I don't care, apathetic culture to, hey, yes, man, find a passion and fine. If what we're doing now you're not interested in, let's go and try something else. Our job as a family is let's try different things until you find something that genuinely you like and we like and it's something we can share. Now, I'm not saying that everything we need to do it together as a family. I'm not saying that. So we also need personal time. There's some things the father wants to do alone, like play golf, and they don't want anybody else there. Or there's some things the mother wants to do alone. There's some things the children want to do alone. So you also need your alone time. But I'm just saying once or twice or 3-4 times a week, there are some things that all of you should do together and enjoy it. Okay? All right, good. Reflection number 7. So 2 more and then we're done, right? Number 7, do my children trust me? Now, I think this is especially an issue when you've got teenage children, right? And for parents, that's the nightmare, right? You're thinking, my goodness, they're going through this teenage life, all of these challenges, changing bodies, boyfriend, girlfriend, attraction, self-esteem issues, psychological issues, and you're going through this storm. In fact, the psychological, I think, term for teenagehood is storm and stress. It's a storm. They're finding their identity. They're going through all kinds of hormonal changes and emotional changes. And in that crisis, and you're thinking, worst case, what if their friends offer them drugs? What if they, offer them alcohol? What are, unprotected sex? All of these things. And we're thinking, at those moments, right? Do they trust me enough to come to me when they need help? Do they trust the parent enough to come to me and tell me when they're under pressure, when they're having a difficult time, right? Okay, now I want to say a few things, all right? I'm not saying that as a teenager, you're going to be their only confidant. I think that's not realistic. I think we all realize ourselves when we were teenagers, our parents are not the first people we talk to when we are going through a crisis. That's completely normal. It's not a reflection of you as a parent. Even the best parent in the world, children by that stage have already enlarged their social circle. So of course they will have friends and, gang and buddies and other, BFFs that they go and talk to, and may not be you. But I think we want to be at least in that conversation, right? So we want to say, look, we want to be available and there and accessible so that if our children really are going through a difficult time, we hope that they trust us enough to come and talk to us. That they're not going to keep silent. If they're in an emergency, they're really in a difficult position. Worst case scenario, we hope that they trust us enough to be open to come to us because they know that we're going to be supportive. We're going to help them. We're not going to shout at them or whatever it is. We're going to be there in their moment of need to actually be of aid to them. Right now, how do we do this? Because this is not overnight one. It takes time to build this bond. So I would say wherever you are, doesn't matter how old or young your children are, it's never too late to start building a relationship with your child. And I think the tip here also is don't treat your children as a gang. So those of you with 2, 3, 4 children, it's good to spend time with the whole family together, but there are also moments where you want to spend one-to-one time with them so that they don't feel as though they're part of a group, because obviously there's certain personal things they want to talk to you about that they're not comfortable with their younger brother or younger sister around, right? Okay, so it's good maybe once every 2-3 weeks. I know it's harder with lockdown to have times where you can have a meal or do an activity one-to-one with each of your children. So you're giving them an opportunity to build that one-to-one relationship with each of you, father and mother. It can be one-to-one separately. And therefore, they start to feel at ease. They're comfortable in your company because in those moments, you go fishing together or you do something together. Both of you are sharing stuff, right? And I would say, the first way to build trust is you need to set aside time and you need to also start sharing. So, you don't expect them to pour out their heart and soul if they don't trust you yet. So, one of the best ways to build trust is you should start sharing. You can start sharing about your own stress, what's happening, what's disturbing you in your job, in terms of future direction, So share, you start sharing with your, teenage children. They start, in a sense, appreciating that openness and they realize, okay, you're treating them like an adult. You're not pandering to them. You're not condescending to them. At some point when the time is right, it at least makes you more accessible when they want to share something with you. All right. So one barrier is no time. So make time. Number 2, no respect. So sometimes when you have to think, the last time they shared a problem with you, did you sort of brush it off and say, oh, this is a stupid problem, don't go and waste my time. This is like high school problem, kindergarten problem. If Papa has much bigger problems, $1 million problems, don't go and waste my time with this thing. So if we don't show respect or empathy, now you can bet that they're not coming back to you with your problems anymore, right? Because the last time I went to Papa and Mommy, wow, they laugh at me, they said it's a stupid problem, They said it's a small problem, go and solve it yourself. So we need to be sensitive, all right? This is what we call reinforcement. I mean, if when they come to you with a small problem, show them that you're willing to listen, willing to respect, willing to advise, willing to listen to them, without judgment. Then, I mean, when the bigger problems come, they're more likely to talk to you. But like I say, even small things also, you brush them off. You're impatient. You don't have time to listen. Don't expect them to come when they've got a really big problem. So I think patience also is important. In fact, this is true for marriage as well. I know a lot of wives, for example, complain that their husbands have no time to listen to them, right? Husbands are very problem-oriented, problem-solving mode. So the wife shares something, the husband goes, okay, 5 minutes, okay, here, these are the solutions, do this. And I mean, we all know this story. So wives gets all frustrated because they say, look, I didn't share the problem with you because I wanted the solution. I'm not so stupid that I can't find my own solution. I just wanted somebody to share the burden, isn't it? I just wanted somebody to listen. Listen without judgment, listen without comments, just somebody to journey with me. Sometimes I don't need advice unless I ask for it. And I think so, same principle with our children. Sometimes they just want to share and that's fine, So we don't need to go and micromanage every single thing that is there. So I think these are some of the barriers we need to remove to reach a stage where then your child trusts you enough so that when there is an emergency or crisis someday, that they will then come to you without fear, right? Without reservation. Okay, last reflection before we end. Right? I'm sorry. I know we've taken a bit more time, but I thank you all for staying. All right. So reflection number 8. What do I want for my life? Now I know this changes tack completely. This may be a bit of a surprise because this has nothing to do with your children anymore. This is the one reflection question that has got to do with you. So the first 7 questions helps you get clarity over your role as a parent for your children, right? So we've talked about, what is your goal, loving them, commitment to them, all of this stuff. So it's very child-centered. Now, this last reflection question, now that's more about you. And that's really important because you remember how we started the session, the first reflection? Our goal in life is to help our children find happiness in their life. Live this full life, right? A fulfilling, meaningful life. So we don't want them to end up as adults with an empty life, who are miserable, who are frustrated, who are defeated in their lives, isn't it? And so my point is, we cannot live that miserable, defeated life ourselves. You understand? We have to model. We can't be telling our children, yeah, go and live a full life, but Papa and Mommy are miserable every day and what to do, life is like that. And we accept it. And we are not proactively trying to find happiness in our life. So whether it's in our career, our hobbies, our interests, our own spiritual growth, emotional growth, intellectual growth. So I mean, if we are not growing as people, if we are not living a vibrant life, then what kind of example are we setting our kids? The message we're sending our kids are, you know what? Work like crazy in school, go to university, work like crazy there, and then go and get a job and work like crazy, and then you end up miserable like this. I mean, so imagine, what a defeatist message, isn't it? That's a bummer, man. Then our children are thinking, if that's the case, I'm doing all of these things to end up like you, and you're miserable every day complaining, not doing anything that makes you happy. What kind of life am I living? What's the point of it all? I mean, no wonder, to them it's all pointless, right? What's the point of, getting good results if this is where it takes me, isn't it? So I think it's really important, not just for your own health, but for the health and future of your children, I mean, we always say, right, children do what you do, not what you say, right? So I think it's about modeling a purposeful, full life for our children. I mean, that's the greatest gift you can give them. You want them to be happy? Show them how you have tried to find happiness in your life. So, I mean, I know our life is not perfect. I'm not saying we're going to be happy every day. I mean, there are good days and bad days. I mean, we are very real. I believe in a realistic view of life. I don't believe in toxic positivity. I don't believe we need to be smiling all the time. That's not happiness. Happiness is not about being happy and laughing, smiling and laughing all the time. Happiness is something deeper. It's about finding fulfillment and meaning in my life. right? It's not about, laughing every moment of every day, because life is difficult sometimes. In a pandemic, we all realize that life can have sad days, can have tragic days, but through it all, it's about me showing my children that on the balance of things, I've got a life that I'm really happy with. I've got a life that gives me this sense of fulfillment and value. And it's not perfect because I'm not a perfect person. But I'm showing them that even now, at 40 years old, 50 years old, I'm still doing things in a very deliberate, purposeful way to find happiness. And it's never too late. Whether you're 60 or 70 or 50 or 30 years old, at any stage of life, that finding fulfillment and happiness is an active process. You're not just waiting for it to drop on your lap. It's a conscious process of reflection and action to ask myself, what do I really want in my life? And what am I doing to find this value and meaning in my life? So whether it's my work, my career, my hobbies, my interests, my health, my travel, all of the things we talked about earlier, I think we need to model for our children like that. I know how to be happy. I know how to be content with my life. All right. And of course, all of us find contentment in different ways. But to show them that contentment is possible, I think that's a really powerful testimony to your children. Right? Especially, through teenagehood, when they're trying to make their way in this world and they're still figuring out what is life about, and is there hope? And life is so difficult sometimes, especially in a pandemic. Is there light at the end of the tunnel? I think it's up to us to show the inspiration to say, yeah, it is possible. It is difficult. You know what? Yeah, of course. There are tears. There are times where you cry. There are times where you're frustrated. There are times where you feel really, overwhelmed. But there are also times of real, genuine joy. And there are times of great happiness and fulfillment and excitement and energy and hope. So this is the question. And so you need to ask yourself this question: what do you want for your life? And I know some of you have never asked yourself this question because, like I said earlier, we've been conditioned to just think about everybody else from young. Sometimes our culture is, no, don't think about yourself. That's selfish. Think about everybody else. So you're only thinking about, how do I please my husband? How do I please my wife? How do I please my children? How do I please my boss? Whole wide world, what do they want? You never ask yourself, what do I really want? What gives me my sense of purpose? So I think this is really important, right? So for the sake and the health of your own children, this weekend, set aside some time. Go through all of these 8 reflection questions. I don't think you need more than 3-4 hours, so you don't even need to take leave for this. You just need to set aside time. Husband and wife can sort of, sokong each other and, take turns to look after the children if they are young, and just spend some time alone in your house, in your garden, in your room, just alone to think through these 8 questions. And like I said, question number 8 is as important as the first 7 questions, right? Because if you don't have this life that is alive and vibrant and happy and striving, it's really difficult for your children to expect your children to be able to achieve this. Okay, right. So we end, right? We've looked at 8 reflections. I know it's been a long journey, but each reflection, in a sense, is there to spark a thought in our minds, help us cut to the core of what is the heart of parenting. What do we need to prioritize? What do we need to focus on as parents? We started off by saying we are overloaded by information. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed by what other parents are doing, what relatives are saying, what friends are sharing with us. So after a while, we are a blur because we are wondering, actually, what am I supposed to do as a parent, right? So I'm hoping that through these 8 reflections, I've helped, in a sense, create this sense of focus and clarity. Now, this doesn't mean these are the only things we need to worry about as parents. Of course, as parents, there are many challenges and situations we encounter. But I think these 8 reflection questions, in a sense, identify what are the key priorities. What are the most important things we need to focus on as parents? Of course, there are other things we need to do. But these things are the basics, the foundations on which we build our parenting effectiveness with our children. All right. So just to very quickly review, number 1, what do I really want for my children? Get your motives clear. Do I want them to be happy, or am I doing this for myself? Number 2, how am I helping my children discover what they want in life? So I want them to find their direction. So they're not in the rat race, just competing with other people for the sake of competing, and they never live their own life, ever. Number 3, what do my children need to learn to achieve what they want in their life? So what skill sets, right, do they need to develop in order to survive and thrive in the real world? Number 4, do my children know I love them? Number 5, what resources do I need to commit to being an effective parent? So time, energy, effort, all right? Number 6, what passions do I share with my children? And develop something. If you've got nothing right now, nothing to be ashamed of, not too late to start. Go and try something this weekend, right? Number 7, do my children trust me? So how do I build that trust relationship? So when the moment of truth comes, when a crisis comes, they know that they can count on me. I'm not going to be there to, further make them feel lousy. I'm going to be there to support them and help them. And lastly, what do I want for my own life? Right? So you need to be living this full and happy life in order for your children to have a chance to live a full and happy life. Right? Now, all of these things are an exercise in reflection. Right? It takes time to sit down by yourself to think about this. I encourage you to do it every 3 months, at least every 6 months. Right? Doesn't take a lot of time, half a day. Don't even need to take leave, like I say, just take a weekend. It's a discipline to just set aside time to think. Now, the reflection questions I've given you leads to revelation, right? So when you go back and think about it, it will reveal things to you, truths about what am I actually doing? Am I happy with what I'm doing now? Am I on the right track as a parent? So it helps you evaluate yourself as a parent. Am I really focusing time and energy on the right things, right? So that's revelation. It reveals the truth to you. And that's the clarity. That's why we call today's session Parenting with Clarity. It's there to give you clarity. And revelation then leads to action, right? So all of the things we talked about today, there's an action point 1, and there's something for us to do. There's some homework for us to actually execute it. So reflection, revelation to action. And all of these are what we call intentional disciplines. They don't come naturally. They don't come automatically. We need to have the discipline to do these things regularly. Reflect, come out with clarity, and then take action. So look, thank you so much for taking time to join us tonight. I hope some of these ideas you found useful. I really wish you all the best. Please keep safe. And I wish you all the best in your parenting for you and your children, that all of you as a family will find that level of happiness and fulfillment. Now, I want to say, all of these notes are going to be available, so you don't need to copy any of this down. I mean, earlier Winston already mentioned there's a QR code. So later on, he's going to give it to you again, so you can scan to get all of the notes, as well as I prepared a reflection sheet. So if you're doing your reflection, your homework this weekend, you can actually use that sheet to jot down thoughts and notes, either in your computer or your phone or by hand, right? So thank you so much for taking time today. I'm going to pass the time back to Winston. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goh. Well, can I invite Dr. Goh back to the screen as well? Well, this is such an important message for us to learn tonight. Our friend here, Elena, said that this is really info harvesting, Dr. Goh. I learned so much myself. I really love your definition of love, and I'm definitely going to watch Paper by Ron Howard. And also, I love it that in the beginning we would focus about how the whole idea of child-centered, parenting. But at the end, you brought us back to say that we need to be happy ourselves, right? So, I'm reading the comments on YouTube and Facebook. People are pouring in their comments and say that this is awesome. And then they really feel like, this is the chance for us to really be looking into all these issues that you mentioned and all these questions that we need to ask ourselves so that we can be happy, so that we can be a happy parent to make our kids happy as well in this season. So, we wish to really end on time, but I just felt like, the energy is so good here, the community is really responding. I just want to ask if anyone has any questions, please feel free to just put it into the comment box and we see it in the live chat. If we get the chance to ask Dr. Goh here, we will. If not, just keep following us on Parenting with Clarity. We might have more things coming up for you soon. So, let's see. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to comment in the comment box right now. Well, we do see a few questions right now, but most of it is really, Dr. Goh, people are pouring in to say thank you. Thank you for insightful sharing. Thank you, Dr. Goh, your powerful message and eye-opening for us parents. Thank you, Dr. Goh. Amazing talk. Dr. Goh, an eye-opener for me in certain part of me as a parent. Great reflections and concise points presented. Thank you. Wow, I think Dr. Goh, you're really making a lot of people think right now. So, I just want to take this chance to thank you, Dr. Goh, for leading us onto this journey. And if there's any questions, I'll definitely compile it and send it over to you, and hopefully that we'll be able to, work out more, maybe it's a webinar or maybe it's more bite-sized videos that everyone will be able to listen to Dr. Go again, through our future projects and initiatives. So thank you, Dr. Go. Thank you, Dr. Go, for being here with us today.
No, not at all. And thank you so much, Winston, for you and your team for helping us organize and host this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. You've created a great platform that all of us can come and enjoy. And I want to thank parents again. So I thank you so much for your encouragement and affirmation. Like I say, it's a real pleasure for me to do this after such a long time. And as Winston has said, I don't think this will be our last session. We're planning to get, other speakers, myself back, to come and share other thoughts and ideas. So in the Facebook comment page, you can share not just questions that I will answer over the next few days, but even topics. So if you've got suggestions for other webinars, topics that you want us to cover, as Winston has said, I think this is just the beginning. Over the next 5-6 months, I think we want to continue doing webinars like this for parents because, as I mentioned from the beginning, it's difficult and challenging being a parent. I know that. I'm certainly learning every day myself. And so it's really valuable for us to connect as a community, share ideas together, encourage one another. And that's the kind of parent community we want to build for the future, right? So thank you, Winston. Thank you for, we've got hundreds of people join us. I'm so sorry we've ended a bit late, but it's shows your commitment. And 10, 13, hundreds of you are still locked on. So thank you so much. But please now you need to turn us off and, quickly download the notes and then go and be with your children, all right? So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Go. Thank you, Dr. Go. So guys, thank you so much for being here with us today. Remember that you can always go to download the worksheet, the reflection sheet through this link. You can find a link on all of the top comments on our live chat. Then you'll be able to go into this journey. I believe that today, with this Parenting with Clarity webinar, this is not just for us to harvest those info. It is also a chance for us to restart our journey. And I believe that, just that what we said in the beginning, what has brought us here today may not bring us there tomorrow. So in order to march into, a future, and not only we need the 10 real world skills for our kids, we need to equip ourselves as well as parents, as educators. But most importantly, let's stay happy and healthy for our kids as well. All right? So thank you so much for being here with us. Hope to see you soon in our future projects. Thank you and good night.